All right, welcome back to week 13. We're getting really near the end of the semester, and these videos this week are actually a lot shorter. You'll notice if you're watching these, and this one will be no exception. I don't think it'll take too long, but I want to quickly review and tell you what's on quiz number 4, and that's again our second to the last quiz, and then go ahead and begin essay number 7, if you watch the overview lecture, I talked about a lot of this stuff already, so it may be a little bit of repetition, but hopefully not too much, and I'll help you get started with the essay and hopefully help you prepare for the quiz as well. So our quiz has got 3 parts. These are things that we've covered over the last few weeks. Obviously, we're just covering the things that we've done in class in the PowerPoints lectures. So if you want to go back and look at these, we talked about adjectives and adverbs in week 12, and there are going to be 2 questions that'll ask you basically to use adjectives and adverbs correctly. So again, you could go back and look at the lecture for rhetoric and writing in week 12 when I covered that, or if you want to just take the quiz and see how it goes, remember you get 2 tries with each quiz. So if you don't do so well, then you could go back and look at it. Another one is on colons and semicolons. It's just a grammar thing that I covered in week 11, again in that rhetoric and writing lecture. So if you want to go back and look at that, and you can even, when you open these videos, of course, you can just skim through, kind of move the cursor there at the bottom until you get to the point you want to watch, I think, pretty easily. So you could figure out, you could skip some of the intro stuff and just get right to the part that's going to be on the quiz. So these 2 things. And then there's one question about Sonny's Blues. And if you've read the beginning of Sonny's Blues or listened to me talk about Sonny's Blues, so you could go back and look at any of the reading lectures if you wanted to for week 10, 11, and 12. I think I talked quite a bit about Sonny's Blues, and you'll get a sense, I think, of, you probably, if you've read the story, you definitely, this question shouldn't be hard because it's a very basic element of the story. So that's really all that's on the quiz. We got a couple of grammar things here and 1 question on our reading. And as usual, it's a 5-question test. Each question is worth 4 points. If you can, I'd like you to take that by the end of this week 13. April 22nd at 11:59 p.m. is kind of the official cutoff date. If you don't take it exactly 11:59 p.m., it's not going to block you from taking it. It's just going to let me know that it was late. And at this point, I'm not going to deduct any points for that. But at any rate, that's when I'd like you to do it. And then we're into, after you finish that, we're kind of into the last quiz. Everything that we cover for the rest of the class will be on that 5th and final quiz for in terms of our quizzes this semester. All right, so here's essay assignment 7 again. And again, if you haven't watched the overview video, I would recommend go back and watch the overview video, because I covered in that video what about each one of these topics, how you can write about some facet of addiction, how you could write about the idea of legalization of both marijuana and the decriminalization of hard drugs in the U.S. that's going on in some states around the country, or this last one, which you'd write a letter in response to Sonny's letter. Sonny's letter appears in the story to his older brother on page 488. So again, I say a little bit more in detail about this in the overview lecture. So if you just want to read these, but I'm asking you for the 7th and 8th essay here, our last one, to choose one of these 3 topics, or like I said in the overview lecture, something related to our theme of addiction and recovery that's in the story. I think the story is more about addiction, doesn't really go into recovery, so we're adding that. But at any rate, take a look at that, and if you have questions, let me know. And again, look at that overview lecture again, because I said a little bit more about it there. And here's sort of how you might approach this. And if you look at the essay assignment that's posted in Blackboard now under our week 13 folder, you'll see at the as you read through the assignment these different parts. And you might remember earlier in the semester we talked about the writing process. So to get you started with pre-writing, here's a little bit of information you could write about what is addiction. And if you watch this short video again for ideas, that could help. And then or about recovery, look at the journal. And this is that video again that I've talked about, which is called Ben is Back, and it's about a young heroin addict who's coming home right around Christmas time, and the relationship he has with his mom, and it's very tense. It's just one scene from that movie. And then we've got the journal entry for week 13 on the idea of recovery. So do a little pre-writing to get you started thinking about this topic. And then after you do pre-writing, you usually do planning and drafting, right? And so this gives you some things you can do to kind of develop your argument. Start by brainstorming. List as many reasons as you can think of for why you think as you do. So maybe your opinion is we should legalize or decriminalize hard drugs. Why do you think that? What are your reasons? So really do that. Analyze your reasons. In other words, break them down as much as you can. Like, why do I feel that way? You don't have to put this in your essay, but if you can put it on paper, it can really help you think through your topic and have a much stronger argument. What kinds of evidence can you think of to support your reasons? That's the most important thing. So you state this thesis, we should decriminalize hard drugs. What's the reasoning behind that? Or you state this thesis, we should not legalize drugs of any kind. And what's your thinking on that? What are your reasons? If you have at least three good reasons that you can back up then with evidence, that's a good start. Try to anticipate readers' objections. So you're arguing for not making drugs legal. What are people who want drugs to be legal going to say? Or you're, thinking about you're writing this letter to Sonny to tell him, come home and change your life and stay with me. I'm your brother. I'll help you. What do you think? How is he going to object? No, I can't do that. I can't change. And then try to understand what your opponents believe and why they believe it as much as you can. Can you concede that some of their objections make sense? So maybe some of the things that, people disagree with you, that make sense. And concession, we talked about this with the argument. Concession's a really powerful strategy in an argument, because you're basically admitting, oh, well, the other side has some good points. I don't agree with everything. And what it does is it strengthens what's called your ethos. If you remember, ethos is like, you believe me, you know me, you trust me, or you can trust me. And it builds that ethos and believability because it shows you to be a reasonable person, which is a big element of doing really good academic writing. So take a look at this. And then when you've done that, when you've thought about the ideas, this is just one way to approach it. Again, I'm walking you through the steps in the writing process here, basically. Draft a working thesis statement. So to me, a thesis statement is your subject and your opinion at minimum, right? Hard drugs should be decriminalized, or vice versa, whatever that is. But your subject and your opinion, what is that? And if you have that, that's a very good start. Somebody outside is honking their horn like crazy. I don't know if you can hear that. Sorry. Nothing I can do about that. When you're making videos at home, things are going to happen. We live on a busy street. Then you may want to do an outline. And that is really annoying. Okay. Your outline of your essay could be broken up into you could do it in different ways, right? So one really simple way is your introduction with your thesis statement. That's your opening paragraph. Then as sort of an acknowledgement of opposing positions. So you look at the other side, like we talked about. Oh, a lot of people probably wouldn't agree with me, and I'm going to just share a little bit about that. And then, of course, you're going to go on to give your reasons and support, and then a conclusion. So this is one way you can organize this type of essay. It's an argument essay, right, on this, kind of an important and kind of serious topic. You could also do it a little bit differently. You could put your reasons and support for your own position first, then acknowledge opposing views, then do a conclusion. Or over here on the right, this is a much more involved one, where you do your introduction with your thesis, you acknowledge one opposing view, and you refute that. In other words, you prove it wrong. You acknowledge another opposing view. You refute that. So again, these are just different ways of setting up your argument. And these are also in the assignment document, but I wanted to explain these just a little bit because I think these are possibilities that might help you structure your essay. And then, when you've gotten that done, and this is something that we'll probably go through more as we get into the second draft, so not to worry too much about this, but also before you hand it in, make sure you have a thesis that's debatable, not factual. Remember, a debatable thesis just means that it is something that's not a fact, right? So again, if you say addiction is a problem, that's kind of debatable, but probably not too much, right? So you probably want to say it's one of the most serious problems in our culture, modern day, or it's become more dangerous because addiction, certainly during the pandemic, there's been a lot of overdose deaths that have actually increased a lot. I've been reading about that. So anyway, it's got to be debatable, right? So it has to be something that a reasonable person could disagree with. Use a reasonable tone throughout your essay. So check and make sure you're kind of using, I would say, formal, what we call academic language, right? You're trying to keep it at a level that is not like a text message or an email, but more that formal academic language that we've sort of worked on throughout the semester. Prove to your reader why your thesis is valid. Give good, convincing reasons. That's the most important part of an argumentative essay. Do you give good reasons to support your thesis? And then finally, this is definitely probably something you're going to look more at after we get the first draft. I give you feedback. Hopefully you get a peer response, and then we get into proofreading. So again, I just walked you through kind of the writing process, and this is, you can find all of this, all the steps in the actual essay assignment, which is, this idea of addiction and recovery. And again, if you find one of these 3 topics doesn't really work, it's not interesting, I'm sure there's a lot of other ways you could approach this idea of addiction and recovery. And if you wanted to turn this Sonny's letter into a letter to an actual real person, if there was somebody, a friend, a family member, maybe somebody from the past you wish you had written to, or you can definitely personalize this as long as you follow the structure of an essay and you make it in a letter form, dear so-and-so, and then you still have an introduction, like why are you telling them this, and a thesis, give an opinion, and then give them lots of good reasons to. So you could do this more personalized if you wanted to. So lots of ways you can approach the topic, but I would ask you to try to stay on this and maybe bring in something from Sonny's Blues in some way. Whether you're quoting or you're referring to the story or summarizing part of it. You don't have to summarize the whole story like we've done in previous essays, but try to connect to that story. So again, these steps, hopefully, you can kind of walk through what you would do, explore the issue, pre-writing, planning, drafting, outlining, revising. You don't have to hand all this in. These are just ideas to help you work through, again, essay 7 and 8, which we'll be working on this same topic. And this is our last essays for the semester. And before we know it, it will be summer. So anyway, let me know, as always, if you have questions. I have office hours a few days a week. And, I have even face-to-face if you want to meet with me face-to-face. If you're, trying to get caught up or anything this semester, let me know. Or just send me an email and I can help that way too. And hope everybody has if you watched this video before, have a happy Easter. If you watched it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I hope you had a happy Easter. And I will hopefully see you in another video or see you in person at some point. Thanks.